Welcome to the next video in the series for do-it-yourself whole foods recipes made healthy. This recipe I'm featuring is called emergency cookies, because there's always that time where you feel like you need to make some cookies and have something on hand to snack on, but you also want something that you don't feel guilty about eating, something that's really nourishing and nutritious. So that's how I developed this recipe. The ingredients, again, you might see some familiar ingredients here if you've watched some of the other tutorials. Flaxseed, and what I use here is ground milled flaxseed. I get this at Costco. You can usually get it in the grocery store or at a health food store as well. You might need to ask around to figure out what department it's in. This recipe also features chia seed. I've just found out that my local Costco store is carrying it. But again, if you don't find it on the shelf at yours, you can find it at a health food store or you can buy it online. Chia seed and flaxseed are really unique seeds in that they're great sources of plant-based omega-3 fats. And they have another unique property: when they're exposed to moisture and water, they tend to swell up with the natural fibers, soluble fibers that they have, so it creates a lot of fiber in your products. It creates a lot of bulk and a lot of texture, so I love to include them in recipes to make foods more nourishing. There is a little bit of coconut flour in this recipe as well, so again, it's just a small amount, but it does the trick for helping hold together your product, but without adding any gluten or grains to the recipe. It's a lower carb alternative because you don't have to use as much. This recipe also features a half a cup of walnuts, and the benefit of walnuts is it's another good source of omega-3 fats and adds a little bit of texture to the cookie as well, and has great energy, long-lasting energy. The recipe has 3 eggs in it. Again, if you want to make it vegan, you can take away the eggs and substitute with flaxseed. The substitution is about 2 to 3 tablespoons of flaxseed per egg. So it's going to make a fluffier egg if you take out a fluffier cookie if you take out the eggs, but it can be made vegan if you want to make it that way. But I like to include the eggs for protein, and it also helps hold together the cookie as well. The sweetener in this recipe is medjool dates. Medjool dates are the larger size date. You usually can find these at a well-stocked grocery store, or in my case I purchased them at Costco, and it's a nice price for that. But that's your main sweetener. So far we've got seeds, dried fruit, and some nuts, some eggs, and there's a little bit of almond flour in this recipe. Again, it does add another ingredient, but I like it for texture, and you could swap out the almond flour for coconut flour if you wanted to get away from it and simplify the recipe. But I like, if you have the almond flour from on hand from the other recipes we've covered, it's a great way to use it, and again, it just adds more fiber, more healthy fat, and gives you a lot of energy in these cookies. So, and there's a little bit of baking powder in as well for leavening. So to break that down, what I'm using, if you want to write this down, it's 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed, 2 tablespoons of chia seed, a 1/4 cup of almond meal or almond flour, a 1/2 cup of walnuts, a 1/4 cup of coconut flour, 3 eggs, 8 to 10 dates, and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking powder. Now you could jazz these up a little bit, make it fun for kids and people that really want that sweet tooth. You could add 1/3 of a cup of chocolate chips to this recipe. A great way to do it and spread them out is to kind of chop them up in a food processor and sprinkle them in. And that way you don't have really large chunks. But if you need chocolate, and sometimes we need that, it's nice to be able to jazz up this recipe just a little bit. But otherwise, they're quite nourishing. All healthy ingredients, no added sugar. It's just the dates for the sweetener and nuts for the bulk of what the cookie is. So in another way, you can think of it as a different form of trail mix, because that's really what you're getting is fruit and nuts. All right, so to put it together, you definitely want a food processor or mini chopper. I think the recipe works better in a larger food processor to kind of chop up your dates. Another alternative you can use, and I didn't mention this earlier, but instead of dates, you could use other dried fruits such as dried apricots, dried raisins, or dried persimmons. These are just other ways that you can add a little bit of natural sweetness that will spread throughout the cookie. But I like to chop up the dates and the walnuts together first so you can get to a nice mealy texture. This is what you're looking for. After about 30 seconds or so, check your food processor to see the texture, and you want to get to about this mealy texture. And from here, if you're using a larger food processor, you can go ahead and mix it all into the food processor at once, or you can transfer it to the bowl and add the rest of your ingredients. So I like to add all the dry ingredients first. I've got the coconut flour, the almond meal, the flaxseed, the chia seed, and the baking powder. So that's all kind of mixed together, and you're doing all the dry ingredients at once. So sort of mix that up, and then you can add the eggs on top of that. You're going to have a little bit of moisture there. So you've got the eggs on top, and then as you mix it together, you're going to get your dough, and it starts to look like this, and you're pretty much done. And then you can go ahead and spoon it onto your cookie sheet. You can do it in about tablespoon amounts, and it's a stiff dough, so you're going to have to flatten it out. You can use a little cookie scooper if you'd like, but go ahead and I think this recipe definitely seems to make a good amount. So this one's making about 15 cookies. And then, it comes out, a little bit, you're putting it into the oven about 350 for about 8 minutes, and you can get a nice crispy edge of the cookies. And you can see that these finished cookies have chocolate chips in them. So that was the route that I went here. And you've got on hand some nice nourishing cookies that, just in case of an emergency, you've got a snack attack coming on, or you're going to have some kids over, you've got something really healthy to offer with all natural ingredients that you made yourself. Enjoy. And then coming up next in our next video, we're going to be looking at a fizzy yummy drink you can make yourself.